The Game of Thrones TV series on HBO was initially released in April of 2011 and has since become an international sensation. Based on the book A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, this fantasy television series takes us on an adventure that has now spanned 8 seasons and over 68 episodes. Game of Thrones has received 47 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Drama Series in 2015, 16, and 2018, which is more than any other primetime television series. In honor of the new and final season of Game of Thrones, I wanted to talk about some of our favorite fluffy characters, Direwolves. Direwolves immediately won over the hearts of many in the Game of Thrones world. These large wolves are not only pretty cute, but they are fiercely protective and loving towards their respective owners. In this video, I will be going over the origins of direwolves in Westeros and in the real world. Direwolves are extremely rare in Westeros and are the sigil of the House of Stark in Winterfell. Each Stark child has a corresponding direwolf that is often depicted fiercely protecting their Stark. Unfortunately, most of the Stark's direwolves have since passed, but Ghost and Nymeria are still alive. Although Nymeria, Arya's direwolf, has not been seen since season 1. Ghost in particular has taken quite a fan base. His bright red eyes and stark white fur, and his love for Jon Snow makes him an automatic fan favorite. In the books, Ghost is characterized as being thoughtful, silent, and very observant, much like his owner Jon Snow. In the TV series, he does growl and snarl, but in the books, he never makes a sound. It can also be noted that Jon is different from his family, being illegitimate, and Ghost is the runt of his family, 2 kindred spirits. Overall, direwolves in Game of Thrones and direwolves from real life really aren't that far apart in look and size. Direwolves, or Canis Dirus, aka Fearsome Dog, actually lived from the late Pleistocene and early Holocene epochs, which spanned from 125,000 to 9,000 years ago. To put this in perspective, this was right at the tail end of what we now know as the Ice Age. So, if we were to go back in time and see direwolves, we would also find tons of other megafauna like mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and ground sloths. Direwolves were mainly found in North and South America, but the largest population of direwolf bones is actually found in Los Angeles, California at the La Brea tar pits, which makes sense because of the tar pits' ability to preserve bones and other artifacts. So, let's go over some basics about direwolves. These wolves are closely related to the modern-day gray wolf, but were roughly 50% larger in weight and 20% larger in height and length. Direwolves are about 96.5 centimeters tall, with the body length of 175 centimeters and weigh about 68 kilograms. They also had longer legs, skulls, and muzzles compared to the modern wolf, whereas gray wolves were 104 to 160 centimeters in length and 80 to 85 centimeters in shoulder height, and are on average 43 to 45 kilograms. So, let's compare the direwolf to other canids and a human to really grasp its size. This is my dog Chemo. He has a German Shepherd, Malamute, and Husky mix. He often gets mistaken for a wolf dog. As you can tell, Chemo and Ghost share many characteristics. The only thing missing is Chemo is much smaller in size, thank goodness, and doesn't have a pair of bright red eyes. Chemo is still fairly large. He weighs 36 kilograms and stands 68.5 centimeters tall and is about 139 centimeters long. Even though Chemo is big, he is my example for a modern dog. Here is Chemo next to the modern gray wolf. Then you have the direwolf, which is going to be slightly larger, and then a 6-foot-tall human. So you can see that direwolves are fairly large and are accurately depicted in size in the Game of Thrones TV series. I think it's safe to say that direwolves were definitely not as friendly to humans as Ghost and the rest of his litter were to the Stark family. In fact, direwolves could take down prey that was 9 times its weight. They often preyed on bison and other large animals and could easily crack a femur bone of a large animal. But if prey was scarce, they would also eat beached whales. Direwolves lived in monogamous pairs and often would hunt in packs of relatives that were led by one monogamous pair. Over time, prey became more scarce as the climate got warmer and warmer, and eventually, direwolves were completely wiped out due to climate change and the overexploitation of newly arrived human hunters. Overall, I think direwolves in Westeros and direwolves in real life are incredibly similar, From what we can see in Game of Thrones, direwolves stand incredibly tall and are roughly the size of real-life direwolves. They also have a lot of similar coloring to a gray wolf, which you probably would have seen on a real-life direwolf. All in all, these companions are just one of the many things fans of Game of Thrones love about the fantastical series. One thing that stood out to me throughout my research was the fact that the warming climate ultimately killed all of the direwolves in real life, whereas White Walkers, that are described as, quote, having blue eyes that burn like ice and are accompanied by an intense cold, unquote, are the impending doom of all existence in Westeros. Just some food for thought. This is Fake Life Lore. Thanks for watching.